welcome to this edition of Self-Reliant India, a daily program highlighting various aspects of the government's policies and initiatives that are pushing India towards self-reliance or Atmanirbharta. Today we will discuss the much-awaited scrappage policy. The policy was discussed yesterday in the Lok Sabha. As per Union Minister Nitin Gadkari, a vehicle will have to undergo mandatory fitness test, failing which it will be declared an end of life. This augurs good news for consumers who are planning to junk their old vehicles and buy a new one under the vehicle scrapping policy, as automakers will give about 5% rebate on the new purchase. According to an estimate, at least 1 crore polluting vehicles will be scrapped off the roads upon the implementation of the new policy. Let's listen to what the Union Minister said in the House. Let's listen to what the Union Minister said in the House.
Thursday brought good news for automobile industry and consumers who want to go for new vehicles in exchange of old ones. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari presented an outline of upcoming vehicle scrappage policy in Lok Sabha. As per Union Minister, the much-awaited scrappage policy will not only boost the economy by removing older vehicles and putting newer ones on the road, it will also help in curbing pollution by taking polluting vehicles off the road. It may be recalled, this year's union budget had a specific mention of bringing in force new scrap policy. The policy will be notified in a period of a month or so, and ahead of the final rollout, here are the key takeaways. A vehicle will have to go mandatory fitness test once the registration of the vehicle ends. The age of the vehicles is kept 15 years for commercial vehicles and 20 for personal vehicles. Old vehicles will be required to undergo mandatory fitness and pollution test in automated facilities. For this, automated fitness centers would be required throughout the country.
पुराने वाहन फिट वाहनों की तुलना में 10 से 12 गुना अधिक प्रदूषण और हवा को प्रदूषित करते हैं और सड़क सुरक्षा के लिए भारी जोखिम है। यहाँ एक ऐसी विन विन पॉलिसी होगी जिससे कि न केवल पुराने वाहनों को स्क्रैप करने का प्रोत्साहन मिलेगा, बल्कि नए वाहनों को खरीदने के लिए सामान्य जनमानस को आर्थिक सहूलत भी मिलेगी। स्क्रैपिंग पॉलिसी है, ये एक ऐसी परिस्थिति निर्माण करेगी जिससे स्क्रैपिंग सेंटर्स, ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री, component industry और सामान्य लोगों को इसका फायदा होगा।
The new scrappage policy is poised to benefit car consumers. Vehicle manufacturers are advised to give 5% discount on new vehicles against a scrapping certificate. Scrap value of the ex-showroom price of vehicle ranging from 4 to 6% will be given to owner if they choose to scrap the vehicle. A rebate of up to 25% will be given in road tax. Upon showing scrap certificate, the policy proposes waiver of registration fees.
उसमें व्हीकल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कॉस्ट भी कम होगी और वाहन के मालिक को व्हीकल का स्क्रैप मूल्य जो लगभग 4 से 6% होता है वो भी मिलेगा एवं स्क्रैपिंग सर्टिफिकेट भी मिलेगा। इसके साथ साथ हमने एक एडवाइजरी भी आज निकाली है कि ये सर्टिफिकेट लेकर नई गाड़ी खरीदने के लिए जो भी कोई व्यक्ति जाएगा उसको 5% नए गाड़ी के कीमत पर सहूलियत दे। इस प्रकार की एडवाइजरी भी भारत सरकार से हमने उनको दी है। इससे लोगों को नए वाहनों को खरीदने के लिए प्रोत्साहित होंगे, जिसमें ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर की सेल्स और बढ़ेगी। इसमें जो राज्य सरकार का और भारत सरकार का जीएसटी है, अनुमान है कि करीब 30 से 40 हजार करोड़ इसमें जीएसटी बढ़ेगा क्योंकि नए वाहनों की खरीदी बिक्री होगी।
Significantly, new scrappage policy will have a huge impact on the cost effectiveness of new vehicles. New policy will ensure less dependency on import of raw materials like steel, rubber, aluminium that further lead to reduction in prices of the new vehicles.
तो मुझे लगता है कि ये सबसे ज़्यादा रोजगार देने वाली इंडस्ट्री है, तो इसके कारण हमारा एक्सपोर्ट भी बढ़ेगा और काफ़ी फायदा होगा। अब ये ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर का इसमें स्क्रैपिंग पॉलिसी लागू होने पर निश्चित रूप से नया एम्प्लॉयमेंट खड़ा होगा, एक्सपोर्ट बढ़ेगा, जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट बढ़ेगी, पर कैपिटा इनकम बढ़ेगा और इसके कारण एम्प्लॉयमेंट पोटेंशियल बढ़ेगा और प्रदूषण कम होगा।
The policy started as a major step to boost the Indian automobile sector. It is estimated, besides 30% boost to the automobile industry, turnover to rupees 10 lakh crore in the years to come, besides giving a renewed push to auto sector that accounts for a huge chunk of employment generation. With inputs from Vishal Baristo, DT India.
And joining us on the show to discuss this issue are Amit Vardhan, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Road, Transport and Highways. And there's Sumit Isar, MD, Mahindra Intertrade Limited and Director, Mahindra MSTC Recycling Private Limited. And R.K. Dhawan, automobile expert. A very warm welcome to all our guests on the show. First of all, coming to you, Mr. Vardhan, I'd like your reactions as part of the Ministry of Road, Transport and Highways. What would you say is the vision behind it? It's India's first such policy.
Yeah, there is a very big vision behind this policy. Let me tell you the context of it. You see, the newer vehicles are lower on fuel consumption and on maintenance cost relative to the older vehicles. They have greater safety features for passengers. So these will be very big pluses for the customer. Then for the industry as a whole, it is expected that it will boost investments by about rupees 10,000 crores and lead to 35,000 more jobs. Then there will be low-cost raw materials emanating from the scrap, which will be used in steel industry. And there are other rare earth metals like germanium, ruthenium, which have usage in defense applications. It is also envisaged that the informal vehicle scrapping industry will be integrated with the formal sector. This will also reduce vehicular pollution in a big way. It is estimated that there are about 1 crore such vehicles which can be scrapped. If they are replaced, then it is estimated that the vehicle air pollutants will decline by about 30%. These are the major objectives, and that is the context of the policy. It's a very, very welcome policy which has been introduced.
A very welcome policy, says the Ministry of Road, Transport and Highways. Coming to somebody who's part of the industry, somebody who's part of the receiving end, what would you say, Mr. Isar? What are the reactions of vehicle makers? How do they look upon this new policy?
Yeah. So let me start with complimenting Government of India and Ministry of MoRTH for coming out with a very forward-looking policy. I think it was time India did have, and we are very happy to see the draft policy coming out, and of course subject to getting some views from the people. But what it actually means is it's going to be a win-win for, I think, all the ecosystem around. For the customers, I think that's the core. They will get benefits for vehicles which are more than 15 years and 20 years, depending on the commercial or the passenger car vehicles. So now they have a reason why they should go out and look at buying a new car. It also brings growth for the automotive industry as overall, and that growth is going to be quite good the way we see coming out of that. And the third is, the more important thing is the sustainability issue, which as companies like us, Mahindra, we always look forward to, is the precious metals can be recycled. For every vehicle is about 1 ton of steel for sure, which goes inside. And the same steel now can be actually recycled back in the industry. We import about 78 million ton as a country. And I think there's a lot of resource which is actually getting spent on that. And over and above that, I think as rightly mentioned, the new vehicles would be definitely more fuel efficient, which saves a lot of foreign exchange for the country as we move forward. So overall, a very positive step, policy, and a very right step in that direction.
Mr. R.K. Dhawan, your reactions to the policy, the announcement of the policy. We believe that it has been a much awaited policy. The Government of India coming out with it finally.
Yes, I think I must congratulate the government and the minister to have taken such a positive step towards putting an end to a life of a vehicle, and after which it is going to be used very frugally, I would say, and also to recycle the materials. It is going to help the automotive industry. It is also going to help the steel industry, where the imports are going to be lesser, and we could probably be recycling our scrap that is being made from these vehicles. If you can know that there has been a scrappage policy in which the imports were allowed to bring scrap so that it could be melted and it could be turned into steel and so on. Like, for instance, in this case also, we would have all the raw material, requisite raw material required for recycling here in our own plants. Plus, it is going to give us a lot of employment. It will be a new industry which would probably be taking the shape. And this was a much needed road book and a roadway to show to the world and to the people of India how this vehicle policy and how the vehicles can be ended, their life can be ended, and it can be used usefully, after which it has been scrapped.
Right. Mr. Vardhan, it's a voluntary vehicle scrappage policy. Private vehicles which are over 20 years old will have to undergo fitness tests, and commercial vehicles that are over 15 years old will have to undergo. If it's voluntary, how much teeth would the policy really have? Because we are looking at it as a policy that will improve the environment, that will bring in a lot of employment. But if it's voluntary, does the ministry feel that, what makes the ministry feel that it will work?
You see, the basic philosophy behind it is that it is related to the fitness of vehicles. So vehicles will be sent to fitness centers, automated fitness centers. And if they fail the fitness test, then they'll be deregistered. They won't be allowed to ply. Now, why would a person keep a vehicle at home without plying it? The person will have to take it for scrapping. So in that sense, it has teeth because we won't allow unfit vehicles to ply. That is the basic philosophy. So personal vehicles, they are registered for a period of 15 years initially. They go for re-registration. And then re-registration is for 5 years in one go. So after 20 years, if it is found that the vehicle is not fit to run on roads, then it will be grounded, it will be deregistered. So then he will have to take it for scrapping.
Right. Mr. Isar.
Similarly, for commercial vehicles,
right.
The rule is that for the first 8 years, the vehicles have to be taken for fitness once in every 2 years. And after that, annually. So it is proposed that after 15 years, if the vehicle is not fit to run, then it will be grounded, deregistered, and that will also be scrapped. So in a sense, this will work.
Right. Mr. Isar, what do you think? How will it work? And how does a company like yours come into this entire process?
So let me answer this question in two parts. One is, if you had asked us our opinion from the point of industry, and since we are already Sero is into this, we would have actually would love to have a policy where it was enforceable, after a particular year. But I think the government has done, and the ministry has done actually a remarkable job by not actually making it voluntarily, but at the same time, making sure that the cost of ownership actually becomes very, very high. Now, actually they raised the bar, and it's almost going to be difficult for anyone to justify having a vehicle more than, let's say, 15 years, or I think even less than that, because, ultimately most of the vehicles after running 15 years actually are not maybe fit for the Indian roads. So in that sense, we do think that this policy will give that a positive boost in terms of numbers. But what we also would like to say from the point of looking at a customer, there needs to be a proper incentivization happening, which we are still not very clear. There are still discussions going around that the industry as a whole, and maybe the government and all, needs to incentivize it. Now, if you see any of the countries in the developed nations where these policies have come in the start, there has been incentivization done by the governments, and initially, and then it becomes a habit, and then it moves forward. Now, if that was there, I think there was no reason for us to believe that this will actually take off. We believe our estimates, being in the industry, is about 46 million vehicles are going to be due in the next 5 years, which is about 9 million vehicles every year, and that includes two-wheelers. So I'm not excluding that. So that's a lot of vehicles going to be actually junk or coming for recycling. And as Sero, since you asked about our plans, we already have 3 plants, one in Noida, Greater Noida. We have 1 plant in Pune, 1 plant in Chennai. And now we are actually ramping up to about 20 plants in the near future by end of this year, maybe beginning of the next year. So we are working towards it. And hopefully by the time the policy gets announced next year, before that, we should be ready to take the advantage.
Right. Well, now I have to ask a very basic question, and I direct my question to Mr. Dhawan. As an automobile expert, how eager would you say would Indian drivers, Indian owners of automobiles, I'm talking about the vast majority in towns, in small towns, in villages, because included in this policy are two-wheelers as well. It's not just about four-wheelers and big vehicles that we're talking about. So they would also come within this policy. How eager would they be to spend that much extra time, considering that it's a voluntary policy? Even after we take into account the incentives that are being offered by the ministry, how eager would you say, how much are people really concerned about the environment?
Actually, there are two schools of thought on this. One, of course, is the old conventional thought, like people like us at our age, who want to hang on to almost everything vintage and everything that we have in the house. An automobile also becomes an extended part of the household. So for people like us, of course, it would be a difficult question to decide to throw the faithful vehicle or a faithful two-wheeler away or they have to be forced to throw it away after 20 years. But when you are talking of the new generation, who has, in any case, they have been born well-heeled and they have been economically well off than the older generation. For them, I don't think there is too much of a thinking in that. In any case, they don't want to keep anything, including mobile phones and cars and so on, for more than 3 to 5 years. So, them to palm off a 20-year-old vehicle is not going to be a big deal. And for them, they are all very pragmatic on giving their old stuff away and getting new ones. And on top of that, since our now almost 50% of the vehicles are bought on financing, this also is going to increase with the new vehicles coming in and new opportunities coming up to about 70 to 80%, where the EMI becomes the main subject of household expense. So vehicle is actually an EMI that is being paid for life, and they have no attachment to the vehicle other than being a mode of transport or trying to go from places. That's it. Plus, by the time this policy gets implemented, let me tell you that we are also going to ramp up our Ola, Uber and public transport system, where I think the demand to own a vehicle is also going to come down, because people are becoming pragmatic and they don't want any extra burden on them for parking, for maintenance, for anything, because these Ola and Ubers, as you know, they take between 5 to 10 minutes to reach you, and they are conveniently available at any time of the day. On top of that, there is a new proposal also which is going around doing the circles, and that is the leasing. So the vehicle ownership is not going to be to a particular person. They are all going to be company owned, and for a lease, it could be a 3-year lease or a 5-year lease, and you keep on rotating your cards, and you are not the subject of disposal of a vehicle after 20 years.
Right. And when we talk about, coming to Mr. Vardhan now, when we are talking about what kind of a timeline basically are we looking at when the process will start, firstly. Secondly, the fitness test facilities will be set up on a public-private partnership. We believe that how would you say that this would ensure a very transparent system, a corruption-free system, the setting up of these fitness centers? Fitness testing centers.
Taking up your first question, we have a very well-defined timeline. We have already initiated that process. We've issued 3 notifications so far. One relates to government vehicles. That is vehicles belonging to the central government, state government, UT governments, PSUs, autonomous bodies with the central and state governments, the state transport undertakings, local government institutions. All these vehicles their certificate of registration will not be renewed after 15 years. So there are about 250,000 such vehicles. So they will be scrapped at the end of this period. So this is a draft notification. It has been circulated among stakeholders. That is one thing. The second is that in a series of disincentives, we are proposing to increase the registration renewal fee after 15 years to disincentivize older polluting vehicles. We have also proposed to increase the fitness testing fee and the fitness certification fee. So these will be strong disincentives for people and commercial enterprises to prolong the life of the vehicle. That is the second thing. Then we have issued the draft rules for scrapping centers. Yesterday we issued those rules in consultation with major stakeholders in the industry. So these three steps have already been taken. Now the next step is the issue of draft rules for setting up fitness testing centers. That will be done within a week or two. So all these two sets of rules will be in the public domain, and we'll be engaging with investors, with public, with stakeholders to enrich these rules to make them robust enough for the future. The timeline is that these rules will be implemented with effect from the 1st of October 2021. That is the first thing. Then we are planning that we'll help set up about 75 automated fitness centers by March 2023, 50 scrapping centers by December 2023. Then we'll have mandatory automated fitness testing for heavy commercial vehicles with effect from the 1st of April 2023, and for other categories by the 1st of June 2024. We are proposing that there'll be mandatory policy implementation for the 10 topmost polluted cities by the financial year 2024-25. So these are the timelines, and we are working towards.
Right.
Regarding your second question about the automated fitness testing centers, as I told you, we are in the process of framing the rules for it. We've had a lot of interaction with industry. These will be mechanized automated centers. So there'll be total transparency. These are going to be linked with the Vahan database of NIC, where all our vehicles are tracked. All the scrapping centers as well as fitness centers will be linked with it. Now, when the testing is done on the test track, it will be all automated. There'll be no manual intervention. The results of those tests will not even be displayed on the test lanes, but they'll be sent to the central server and communicated to the vehicle owner. Then these centers will be subject to surprise audits as well as regular audits. We are also building in checks and balances within these centers so that there is no corruption and there is utmost transparency. We are working towards it, and these rules will be issued soon.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Isar,
Yeah.
you mentioned incentives. We believe that there will be a rebate on road tax, then plus, a rebate of up to 25%, then waiver of registration fees for those who comply by the new policy. Would a company like yours say that that is enough, that is incentive enough for people to come forward and, buy new cars, scrap their old cars?
So if you have to be very, very upfront, we have been basically discussing with a lot of our customers, end users and all. One thing is, of course, there's a point from the point of customers, they would look at huge discounts and incentives, but that is not really going to come in any case. That I don't want to make a request or claim. Maybe it's very important that the customer understands that even if these incentives are given, and I'm now going to actually come more on the numbers. If the customer after 15 years, frankly speaking, his cars are not going to be used and they're not fit for the road, then it's better for him to actually get rid of it and look at buying a new car, which also brings to the point that it is more economical for him to purchase a new vehicle. Now that they will at least get some incentives, and hopefully I think with the OEMs pitching in something at some point of time, it will become an attractive routine. Now there are two thoughts about this, whether that amount would be about 15%, 20% of a new car, and will that be attractive enough for the customers to buy? The answer may not be that it's very attractive. But then what is actually happening is you're creating an ecosystem where people are becoming aware. And I believe the younger generation and even all the people who are actually, especially staying in metro cities, they are very well aware of the pollution issues and all. And so because of this awareness, I believe that people will have and take responsibility and recycle vehicles more than 15 years. And one suggestion which of course we wanted to also suggest was that, after fitment, let's say a vehicle which crosses 15 years and actually even gets passed through the fitness certificate, the labels actually can have a different color, because then those kind of vehicles could be tracked over a period of time. So there needs to be very close tracking. And that is very important because, as long as customers are able to understand that if the vehicles are not fit to drive, and that they will be tracked and they will be an issue if they are not paying taxes or they are not actually recycling it, then I think it's the message has actually gone through very well. So on incentives, the short answer is yes, customers want more, but there's also a limitation to what the government and the ministry and all can do.
Right, and very quickly, we were just talking about the automated fitness centers, Mr. Isar. So, what would it mean in terms of costs, extra costs? Would extra costs come in for you to set up, for a company like yours to set up such fitness centers? How interested would you be?
Okay. So on, let's say we are right now as Sero, we are basically into these scrapping centers, where we are taking old vehicles, we are recycling, and we are actually doing that recycling of the vehicles. On fitness centers, frankly, we have not studied much, but once the guidelines are clear, we would like to go through it. I'm not sure about whether the private participation along with the government will happen, or whether it be separate agencies who are running the collection centers. So these are things which, once they come out, I think then we can decide and comment on that. As of now, we are not much clear on that side.
Right. Mr. Dhawan, Mr. Isar and Mr. Vardhan, please stay with us. We'll continue with this discussion as the government announced its scrappage policy, a much awaited policy for the first time in India. And well, it's time now for a short break here on Self-Reliant India. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Self-Reliant India, in which we are discussing the vehicle scrappage policy announced by Union Minister Nitin Gadkari yesterday in the Lok Sabha. He outlined various policy details regarding the new initiative of the government, and we are talking about what basically the policy means with our guests on the show. Coming to you, Mr. Dhawan, if you can hear me. It says,
yeah, I can hear.
Right. We are talking about automated fitness centers and fitness testing centers. And we spoke with both the person behind, one of the people behind the policy. We also spoke with somebody who's part of a major auto manufacturer. As an automobile expert, what would it basically entail? We'd like you to tell our viewers, for the sake of our viewers, what does it mean in terms of costs they would have to incur, in terms of the benefits, how important would these fitness centers be?
Talking about fitness centers, let me tell you, in the Western world, fitness centers, things like MOT, Now, MOT is a test to be taken by cars which are older than 2 years after they are bought new from the showrooms, and annually they have to be done, and there are some 30 to 40 different items that need to be tested on a vehicle, mechanically, electrically, interior wise, tires, safety and emissions, everything all included. And if it passes all those tests, will it get certificate, for the next time to be given to for MOT. Now, MOT is something which we in India have never had anything like that. And this fitness that we are talking of is going to be something like the MOT abroad. And this is now going to be done after 20 years. Honestly speaking, I would have said that the MOT should be done to any car after 4 to 5 years, after which it has to be proven roadworthiness, including the depth of tires, the type of braking system that is working. Is it working at all or not? Today, you will notice, and it is very evident on our roads, 99.9% commercial vehicles, including our DTC buses, they do not have lights, they do not have indicators, they do not have brake lights, and they, at any time, they can turn right or left without in giving any indication of where they are moving. So that is also a part which is very important, to curb the accidents. Now, these are the few guidelines that have to be followed, and in the MOT or the fitness test, it is very, very important to make sure that the vehicle is almost like showroom condition by once it comes out of a fitness test. That means your handbrake, the condition of the tires, the interiors, the bodywork, the steering, the braking system, all has to be absolutely perfect. There is no way that it can be checked if your braking system is giving you 100% efficiency. There are times, my own experience says, there are times when only one wheel or maybe two wheels are grabbing and the other two are not. And you realize only when the vehicle goes into an accident that yes, the brakes failed and they did not work efficiently, and that's why the accident happened. So it is very, very important that these sort of rules must be implemented to cars which are between 3 to 5 years and henceforth after that.
Right. Mr. Dhawan, when we talk about these fitness centers, as Mr. Vardhan said, they would, and as we heard the Union Minister saying yesterday while delineating the policy, that they would be built on a on a PPP model, public-private partnership would be there, the government would be giving incentives. Major companies like giants like Mahindra, for example, as we were speaking to Mr. Isar, they are still looking at the guidelines, they are still thinking about such things. So when we have these, so what do you think about the government's model of this public-private partnership?
No, I think it has to be a public-private partnership. There is definitely no reason why the government should be handling this thing on its own. It has to be to have efficiency and to have a corrupt-free system where everybody gets justice, including the owners of the vehicle, as well as, if the vehicle has to be scrapped, it has to be justified properly to be able to give justice to everybody. So from that point of view, yes, it has to be a public partnership as well. And only those which have a public partnership, I have seen with my own experience that they are a little more efficient and is more close to the real world than just being, a government-owned subsidy or something. Today, what is happening with PUC is, I think, there is one of the biggest corruption centers everywhere in the city. You pay an X amount of money and you get your PUC done. No matter what the government has tried to have it linked onto the server through all systems available today, yet there is corruption in that. Now, this is what we don't want. We want that it has to be a corruption-free, plus it has to be fair for the consumer as well as for the government to be able to execute it, 100%.
Right. Mr. Isar, when we talk about the benefits, one of the promises that were made yesterday was that there would be a 5% discount on the purchase of a new vehicle. Suppose we are not talking here only about big four-wheelers or even bigger vehicles than that. We are talking about a two-wheeler. A 5% discount would mean a lot for the buyer. What would it mean for the owner? Are the owners willing? Are the sellers willing to take that kind of can we say burden?
Okay. So I think the way right now the discussions are going on is this is a suggestion from the ministry and the government, basically to all the OEMs to look at giving a 5% reduction, for vehicles which are scrapped and people who trade off, let's say, with a destruction certificate, to give them a discount of 5%. Frankly, I'm not in a position right now to say which way the direction and what confirmations will the automotive industry give as a whole, because everybody is having issues on the margins itself. But one thing is very clear, that if with the destruction certificate being available and now it's going to be tradable, that's what is actually come out. We believe that companies which will give some sort of a discount will have an advantage, because the preference of the customers will move towards those areas or to those companies who give them a discount. And if you look at a value of 5%, if you're looking at a car which is somewhere in the bracket of, I would say 5 lakh, even 10 lakh in that bracket, that amount is big, because it's not only that amount he gets, he also gets amount from the recycling of the vehicles. And on that, if you add the road tax and also some other benefits which he gets, the overall what happens is he's able to actually pay his first EMI or the upfront money which he has to pay even to get a loan. He's able to get that. And I think that is something which is very, very interesting proposition for the customer. He actually will be able to get about 15%, 16%, which has come up. It depends, because maybe in a smaller vehicle, it may not be to that percentage. But I'm saying an average of a 10 lakh vehicle, that is some sort of a rule which can apply. And that will very sure make the customers go for a new car at the end of 15 years. I agree on one point, which I think one of my colleagues mentioned out here, that 15 years actually is a long time if you're looking at doing the fitness part of it. And so if you want to make it very attractive, you can actually have this construction certificate even allowed after 10 years. And what happens in cities like metro cities like Delhi and Bombay, or maybe Chennai for that matter, your pollution levels are already high. So will you allow that this rule to overrule in some of these pollutant cities where already the rules exist for 10 years? So there's some sort of a gap there. But I still believe that the companies will have to look at more favorably for the customers at the end of the day, and the discussions between the government and the automotive industry has to go on finally closer.
Right. Companies will have to look at ways in order to make it more attractive for consumers, because at the end of the day, that's what the union minister said. The government is doing it in order to lift up to boost a sagging automobile industry at this point. And coming to you, Mr. Vardhan, on that, when we talk about the incentives, there's also the question of penalties. It says that those who choose to drive a vehicle that has failed the automated test will face substantial penalties. What do we understand by substantial penalties? Will they be monetary penalties? Because if a car fails the fitness test, it is to be impounded.
You see, once the car fails the fitness test, and if the person wants to appeal against it, we'll give them one opportunity. They can go to the workshop, get repairs done, and if they come back again, and then they fail the fitness test, then the vehicle will be grounded. It will not be re-registered. So they'll have to go for scrapping. That is the proposal, and even for commercial vehicles. So one opportunity is given to them, after which if they fail the fitness test, then the vehicles will have to be grounded. That is the thing.
Right.
They cannot run. They cannot run without valid registration. Vehicles cannot run. So they'll be susceptible to challans. That's it.
Right. And Mr. Dhawan, what do you think about that? Plus the matter of a green tax. Well, it is becoming more and more expensive. However, we are looking at protecting the environment. We are looking at a better safety for our roads, on our roads. So how do we balance it? How does a vehicle owner look at this policy?
Well, honestly speaking, I think today the consumer or the taxpayer, he is under a very big burden taxes anyway. I mean, you have your own income tax and then you GSTs on whatever you buy, and heavy GSTs on automobiles is almost 28% on spares. So there are, I think, a lot of tax liabilities being put on to consumers. You talk of the green tax. Well, yes, I would agree that there should be a green tax, but it should show to the world that money that you are collecting in taxes is actually being put to use, and you must be able to see the results of that, rather than seeing only odd and even vehicles to be driven on X days and Y days. So these are something which I don't really agree to. That on one side you are paying for some convenience, and the other side you are again suffering the same problem. So green tax is something which is a bit questionable as far as I am concerned, and I think the government and the authorities need to look a little deeper into this thing and give benefit of doubt to the people who are paying all these taxes to stay alive, in our system.
Right, right. Well, we'll be coming back to our show and to our discussion on the vehicle scrappage policy that Union Minister Nitin Gadkari announced yesterday, after it was initially announced during the time of the Union budget by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Is the first such policy in India. We are talking about all that the policy means, trying to understand various nitty-gritties. We'll be back in a short while, but now it's time for a break. Stay tuned.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind. Zari India. Salam India.
Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Mui
Nous
India.
sommes land.
Nahnu Hunud.
India.
माँ हिंदी हस्ती
Mung Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching Self-Reliant India. We are discussing the government's vehicle scrappage policy announced yesterday and outlined yesterday by Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari. And we have with us our guest on our show, coming to you, Mr. Isar. Talking about the policy and the benefits. So one of the points that was mentioned was that it will boost the Indian automotive industry's turnover by 30% to 10 lakh crore rupees in the coming years. As somebody who's a part of this industry, who knows it more than any of us here, would you agree with that? And which section of the industry are we talking about here? Are we talking about on a regional basis? Are we talking about India in particular? Are we talking about the world as a whole? What is the, how healthy would you say the industry is right now?
So I think a very good question, and why we believe actually this is going to be a game changer for the automotive industry. There's no doubt the automotive industry has been asking for this for a very long time, and it's been a work in progress with a lot of discussions going back and forth. The way we look at numbers today is like between 2020 to 2025, based on the data which we have on registration, about 46 million vehicles, which includes two-wheelers, as I said, will actually get obsolete, or are the ones which need to be actually go for fitness or eventually get scrapped. Now, if you look at that, which means about 9 million vehicles every year will be actually going off the Indian roads. Now, we are in 2021, and if you look at 15 years back, 2006, that's the time when actually the Indian industry was about 2 million, about 2 million and on. Today, the industry is about 3.5, 4 million in terms of passenger vehicles. So what it actually means is or even out of that 9 million vehicles, even if we have about 30-40% of the vehicles getting scrapped, that will straight away come as a replacement for the new vehicles which people will buy. And the industry overall, with a base of about 4 million or something, will actually get another 2 million. So the numbers as of now, if you look based on the 15-year data, looks quite reasonable, and it can be achieved, provided the customers do really start recycling vehicles. The fact of the matter is, I must tell you, the last 3 years we have been in the business, we are not seeing, although the numbers talk something, the number of people coming forward to recycle the vehicles have not been much, hardly anything. The feedstock has not been available. So the data is available there, but there's not been much of a pull from the customer side on this. We hope that with this policy, there will be enough awareness, there will be enough people coming forward, and actually it's going to be very good for automotive industry for sure. It's also, as I said to you, it's going to be a big change for the India as a country, because you would save on fuel, you would save on having extra resources coming from the tax generations and all. And also in terms of employment, the way we see it is the automotive industry, the ancillary industry will actually get benefit out of it. So India will have a circular economy. It will be help boost the overall all the stakeholders in the country. And I think the numbers which have been spelled out look reasonable and are achievable. But we have to be very careful whether these actually happen when the policy gets implemented. And that's where, if you remember, I said voluntary looks good. It's very important, but how do you make sure that after 15 years, when these vehicles do get certification, that certification is done properly? And one of the suggestions which we were discussing internally was to have a different kind of a different color of a number plate coming. So there's awareness that these vehicles are already 15 years old and they need to be regularly checked. So that is something which is, these kind of innovative ideas need to be thought about if you really want to change in society here.
Right. And at this point, I'd like to go across to Mr. Vardhan. As Mr. Isar pointed out, even before I could say it, it is an incentive that will bring up jobs. It is an incentive that will clean our environment. It is a very wholesome initiative on the part of the government. But when we talk about the cooperation of the states, what kind of cooperation would you be looking at?
The state governments have to be on board for the success of this policy. In fact, there are several components which would require their direct involvement. The proposed rebate in the road tax, we have been in touch, and we'll be writing more to the states, having discussions with them to offer this rebate to customers. So that will boost things. And even for attracting investment in the scrapping centers and the fitness centers, the role of states is very, very important, in the form of providing land at reasonable rates, providing other facilities that go with it, the infrastructure. So their role is very important, and we are fully seized of it. We are having discussions with them. A committee has been set up in which they are important stakeholders. So they will be fully on board.
Right. And when I say that it was a very wholesome policy, as Mr. Isar pointed out, bringing up jobs, bringing up, boosting and the automotive industry and so on, has the ministry related it to the concept of a self-reliant India? Because we believe that all these new initiatives that are being announced since the pandemic set in, they're all moving India towards self-reliance, towards Atmanirbharta.
So this is going to be a very homegrown exercise. In fact, interestingly, I went to this Zero facility, which Mr. Issar is the CEO of, and I was told that the first facility which was set up in Greater Noida, it had imported machinery, and that led to higher costs. And the realization from revenues was not adequate because the projection they made of the vehicles did not really turn up accurately. Now, then when they set up their next unit in Chennai, they reduced the cost of their equipment by going for Indian machinery, replacing those foreign machines which were bought. So automatically, when you go for Indian equipment, Indian machinery, Indian resources, the costs reduce substantially. Now, this was prior to the scrapping policy. Now that we have this major stimulus to the auto sector, we are looking at about 1 crore vehicles going off the roads. Then there is immense opportunity in the future, and that will lead to setting up of all these ancillary units, which will provide machinery, equipment to these fitness centers and scrapping centers. So we will not need to import these equipments from abroad. We can have a homegrown thing here itself, a hub here itself in the country. So this will lead to tremendous indigenization and Atmanirbharta.
Right. Very quickly, coming to you, Mr. Dhawan, how ready would you say India is for implementing such a policy?
Oh, well, as I said earlier, I think it's about high time that a policy like this, and we are all looking forward, for our old vehicles to finally find a place where it can be recycled usefully, and yet the owners would get their residual value in terms of buying new vehicles, and they'll get rebates, and of course the old technology will be put to rest, and our pollution levels will also hopefully become better.
Right. And Mr. Issar, what is the message do you feel that has gone out both to the automobile industry as well as to consumers by the announcement of this policy, India's first vehicle scrappage policy?
So I think the overall sentiments are very positive. The automotive industry takes it in the very right direction. They've been asking for it, and I think thanks to ministry and the minister, of course, that this has come, and it's the right time for India to move forward. So because it brings growth for the automotive industry. I also believe it's also going to be a game changer for the steel industry, because a lot of scrap gets imported and they will also start getting benefit of it. So overall, the industry is surely between the automotive, steel industry, the ancillary industry, they will benefit out of it. I also want to say, since you mentioned about self-reliant, we did this first plant with imported equipments. We've actually indigenized that. And actually, we are looking in the near future actually selling these equipments to all. So we don't, as Cero, it's a joint venture between us and MSTC, which is the Ministry of Steel. We will actually send the equipments to each and every one who comes forward for setting up scrapping centers or collection centers. Because we believe the growth can happen if we are able to bring fairness all across the industry. And we are also trying to look at how we can include those people who are in the informal sector. That's a very important part of our strategy, at least. It's not that we, as a corporate, can only do well. We actually want them to be a part of us also. And so in whatever cities we are scaling up, in the next 20 cities, in the next 1 year or so, we'll actually be having them as a part of our in the supply chain. And I think we are fully geared up.
In fact, as you said, echoing the Union Minister's words, a win-win for all. Thank you very much, Mr. Issar, for joining us on the show. And also many thanks to Mr. Vardhan and Mr. Dhawan as well. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Self-Reliant India. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.